Hello, YouTubers and NFL fans everywhere. This is Matt, the NFL Fanatic, giving you my Week 4 2023 NFL predictions. Well, for the Fanatic, this week, it was a very disappointing week in terms of how last week was. After having one of my against the spread and straight up weeks, respectively, this week I unfortunately returned back to the mean when it comes to my against the spread and straight up picks. And just a quick FYI, I know I'm doing this video Tuesday. Starting next week, the plan will be to go all back to every video being done on Monday. Yesterday I did some errands, and by the time I got back, it was just hard to find time to get everything done for the video. So once again, the video is coming out today, but starting next week, the videos will be coming back out on Mondays. So just a quick FYI there. But this week, so last week against the spread and straight up, I had inverse records, unfortunately. So against the spread, I went 7-9, and straight up I went 9-7. So against the spread, a tough week. Still above 500 for the year. So through 3 weeks, I'm very happy about that. I will take that, but definitely a frustrating part of where I want to rebound my against the spread this week, and I feel very good about my picks due to the numbers and the odds. And straight up 9-7. Let me just say this: out of the 7 losses, 4 of them I can accept. For 3 of them I can accept. Chargers Vikings was a 50-50 game that everybody knew was going to be, downright horrible. And it wasn't the fact that the Chargers or the Vikings, neither team won the game. It was the fact the Vikings blew the game harder than the Chargers did. 4 from 1 to the 24, Kirk Cousins throwing a red zone interception. Unfortunately, the Vikings did that. So that one I can accept. The one pick I regret, Steelers Raiders. Great defensive game by the Steelers. Shout out to TJ Watt, first player in NFL history to have 6 sacks, a fumble recovery, and a defensive score through the first 3 weeks of a season. Job well done. They had another 3 interceptions on Sunday. They also lead the league in sacks, like they always have for the last several years for the most part, with 13 so far through 3 weeks. And Jimmy Garoppolo, for somebody that the one key thing that he did really well was not turn the ball over. Unfortunately, now he has 6 interceptions, which I believe is leading the league, and that was the downfall of one of the downfalls of the Raiders losing to Pittsburgh in primetime. So that one I can accept. And Bengals-Rams last night, I didn't know Joe Burrow was going to play. And Joe Burrow and the Bengals defense, first time since 2019, that the Bengals defense was actually able to get 5+ sacks and 2 turnovers in a game. And that was really what carried them over, along with Jamar Chase's monster 11 reception over 140-yard game. And then the other 4 losses, nobody thought that Jacksonville would lose to Houston. Nobody thought that the Ravens would lose to Indy. Definitely nobody thought, with a 12.5-point spread, that the Dallas Cowboys would lose to the Arizona Cardinals, their biggest against the spread loss outright as an underdog since 2006. And with the Saints-Packers game, that was a 50-50 game. But for anybody to pick the New Orleans Saints, we had a 17-point lead in the 4th quarter. And the Green Bay Packers had to engineer their greatest 4th quarter comeback in NFL history, being down 17. So that's how you get the 9-7 straight up. So that's what I'm saying. 3 of the losses I can accept, 50-50, 1 regrettable pick. And the other 4, we had a 17-point lead, and 3 that should have never happened. So, but now overall for the year, though, against the spread now, I am 25-22-1 against the spread. And straight up, I am 27-21. So my against the spread winning percentage, I am still happy with. Very much so. My straight up percentage, I'm a bit disappointed in. I usually am about a 65% getter. It's still only 3 weeks in, so I have plenty of time. It's just frustrating because I know how much how much room I have to grow here. And usually I was hoping through at least 3 weeks, I could have about 60+% at this point. So definitely not out of it, but definitely I have room to work to move forward. So, all right, so let me get into my Week 4 predictions for everyone. So, on Thursday, when the 2-1 Detroit Lions go to Green Bay to take on the 2-1 Green Bay Packers, the Detroit Lions are 1.5-point favorites in this game. Give me Detroit here, -1.5. and Detroit, straight up. Then on Sunday morning, the first international game for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Actually, since they're the only team that they are having, I think they're the first team in NFL history to have 2 back-to-back weeks in London. One is a home team, one is the road team, because they are playing Buffalo in London next week at a different stadium in London. But the first international game of the year, when the 2-1 Atlanta Falcons go to London to take on the 1-2 Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jacksonville Jaguars are 3-point favorites in this game. Give me the Jacksonville Jaguars here straight up, but I'm going to take Atlanta +3. And then the next game, when the 3-0 Miami Dolphins travel to Buffalo to take on the 2-1 Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills are 2.5-point favorites in this game. And as much as I want to ride with the Bills, the team that I think is going to win the AFC East, I am actually going to go for one of the outright upsets and probably one of the easiest picks you can make this week. Give me the Miami Dolphins here +2.5 and the Miami Dolphins straight up. Then the next game, in one of 2 games where there will be a winner unless both of them tie, which I think for all 4 franchises, or for these 2 franchises, you definitely think this would be fair. When the 0-3 Denver Broncos travel to Chicago to take on the 0-3 Chicago Bears, the Denver Broncos are 3-point favorites in this game. Give me Denver here -3 and Denver straight up. And then the next game, when the 2-1 Baltimore Ravens travel to Cleveland to take on the 2-1 Cleveland Browns, the Cleveland Browns are 2-point favorites in this game. Give me Cleveland here -2 and Cleveland straight up. Then the next game, when the 1-2 Cincinnati Bengals travel to Tennessee to take on the 1-2 Tennessee Titans, the Cincinnati Bengals are 2.5-point favorites in this game. Give me Cincinnati here -2.5 and Cincinnati straight up. And then the next game, when the 1-2 Los Angeles Rams travel to Indianapolis to take on the 2-1 Indianapolis Colts. The Indianapolis Colts are 1.5-point favorites in this game. Give me, in my second outright upset of the week, give me the Los Angeles Rams here +1.5 and the Los Angeles Rams straight up. Then the next game, when the 2-1 Tampa Bay Buccaneers travel to New Orleans to take on the 2-1 New Orleans Saints. The New Orleans Saints are 3-point favorites in this game. In my third outright upset of the week, give me Tampa Bay here +3 and Tampa Bay straight up. Then the next game, when the 2-1 Washington Commanders travel to Philadelphia to take on the 2-1 Philadelphia. When the 2-1 Washington Commanders travel to Philadelphia to take on the 3-0. There we go. My apologies. Philadelphia Eagles. The Philadelphia Eagles are 7-point favorites in this game. Give me Philadelphia here -7 and Philadelphia straight up. And then the next game, in the other game of winless battle, when the 0-3 Minnesota Vikings travel to Carolina to take on the 0-3 Carolina Panthers. The Minnesota Vikings are 3.5-point favorites in this game. Give me the Minnesota Vikings here to win straight up, but I'm going to take Carolina +3.5. Then the next game, when the 2-1 Pittsburgh Steelers travel to Houston to take on the 2-1 the 1-2 Houston Texans. The Pittsburgh Steelers are 3-point favorites in this game. Give me Pittsburgh here -3 and Pittsburgh straight up. Then the next game, when the 1-2 Las Vegas Raiders travel to Los Angeles to take on the 1-2 Los Angeles Chargers. The Los Angeles Chargers are 5.5-point favorites in this game. Give me the Las Vegas Raiders here +5.5, but I'm going to take the Los Angeles Chargers straight up. And then the next game, when the 1-2 New England Patriots travel to Dallas to take on the 2-1 Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys are 7-point favorites in this game. Give me the Dallas Cowboys here straight up, but I'm going to take New England +7. Then the next game, when the 1-2 Arizona Cardinals travel to San Francisco to take on the 3-0 San Francisco 49ers. The San Francisco 49ers are 14-point favorites in this game. Give me San Francisco here to win straight up, but I'm going to take Arizona +14. Then the next game, the Sunday night game, when the 2-1 Kansas City Chiefs travel to New York to take on the 1-2 New York Jets. The Kansas City Chiefs are 9.5-point favorites in this game. Give me Kansas City here -9.5 and Kansas City straight up. Then the Monday night game in New York once again, when the 2-1 Seattle Seahawks travel to New York to take on the 1-2 New York Giants. The Seattle Seahawks are 1.5-point underdogs in this game. I am going to take Seattle here +1.5 and Seattle straight up. So I believe this will be probably the most underdogs outright I have taken when I have 4 underdogs, as small as they are, outright to win this week. I know they're small numbers, but still, that's a good idea because that is a lot of good opportunities with outright wins they just need, because you don't need even for them to cover, you just need them to win outright. So I feel pretty good about that. So, but time for my quick thoughts on each game. The Detroit Lions over the Green Bay Packers. This is one to where I want to give the Green Bay Packers credit. They did a fantastic job defensively. After going down 17, they only held the Saints to 10 offensive points due to the Rashid Shaheed 72-yard punt return touchdown. Rashawn Gary had a career high in sacks in the game. I think he had 3.5 sacks. Kenny Clark also had a sack. Romeo Doubs had a big touchdown catch. And there's the 11th straight home opener win for the Packers, which is the longest active streak in the NFL. And Jordan Love, it took him 9 career games playing, but he finally got a touchdown pass to Lambeau due to the big catch by Romeo Doubs. And he also ran another touchdown in, so I was very happy for them. And that Packer team, through that outing altogether, showed a lot of fight and grit. That through 3 weeks, Green Bay, they're not, I don't think, a world beater, but they're an effective enough team that I feel like they can compete, and they will hang around the NFC, I believe, till the end of the season. So, and I already talked about how big the deficits were. And when you look at Detroit finally had a good, fundamental, all-around game. Detroit held Atlanta the 3 points in about 84 yards through the first half. Jared Goff I was a little disappointed in. After having that interception streak go on for a while, he ended up throwing another interception this game to Jesse Bates. So, we no longer can rebuild a consecutive pass streak with Goff. It's going to be where I hope it's not one a game, but he's definitely, ever since that one interception, he's starting to become more turnover prone, because that's rare that Jared Goff has turnovers in back-to-back games. But I do want to give him a little bit of credit, though. He did the one significant rushing touchdown, which was his first rushing touchdown since Week 13 of the 2020 season. And Sam Laporta, who caught his first career touchdown, I want to shout out him as well. He is the first tight end in NFL history to start his career with at least 5 catches in his first 3 career games. He has 18 catches for 186 yards and a touchdown this year, so they have found a very nice weapon in him. Jamar Gibbs had about 80 yards rushing, so I don't feel like if he can keep putting that together, David Montgomery is going to go from being the feature back to the complimentary back, because I feel like Gibbs is going to get more and more touches as the year goes on. And the couple reasons why I'm taking the Lions here. Significant Green Bay injuries. Aaron Jones, Christian Watson, even though Aaron Jones, from what I've heard, is likely going to play, which is big. He was apparently, if they had practiced, he would have been limited yesterday. So, but Christian Watson, David Bakhtiari, and Jair Alexander, I don't know what Jair's hurt with, but if those guys can't go, even though getting Aaron Jones is back, I just think that it's really going to be hard against the Lions team that has played pretty well. And so for the longest time, there was a 20-year stretch from about 1997 to about 2017 or something like that, where Green Bay had owned Detroit in Lambeau, and Detroit only won 1 game in about 25 years. So since 2017, the Lions are 500 in 6 games at Lambeau. So going into Lambeau now for the Lions, who last year, in the last week of the year, beat Aaron Rodgers to knock the Packers out of the playoffs after the Packers had won 4 straight games, I feel like the Lions aren't going to be scared. I feel like the Packers' injuries are going to catch up to them a bit, and I feel like the Lions, with Goff and that talent, should be able to move the ball effectively through the air, move effectively through the ground, because the Packers' defense has shown some flaws, especially running the football. They are a very bad run defense. I think the Lions pull this game out in a tough, nail-biting game. Could the Packers win? Sure. Because a lot of those Packers that were there, they were there last year. And they were motivated to get redemption on the Lions for knocking them out of the playoffs. And I do think if they get Aaron Jones back, that will help the run game tremendously, along with A.J. Dillon and Patrick Taylor. But I have the Lions winning this game based on health, consistency at the tight end spot, the offensive line, and they're not scared to go into Lambeau now to win this type of game. And I just think the Lions, the Packers are rising, the Lions are here. And if there's any moment where the Lions need to fundamentally say with how bad the Vikings and the Bears have been, that they're here firmly in the NFC North, it's this Thursday against the Packers in a very interesting and very competitive Thursday night game. So That's why I like Detroit here, -1.5, and Detroit straight up. The next game, the Jacksonville Jaguars over the Atlanta Falcons. This is one to where this game is real hard for me because I feel like Atlanta has done a good enough job to where they've been competitive through the first two games. On Sunday against the Lions, they look pretty bad. They had a season low in rush yards, 44 total yards. I do want to congratulate Jesse Bates though, another interception. He is now tied with Jordan Whitehead for the league leading in terms of interceptions. But at least the good thing with Jesse Bates is he's intercepted multiple quarterbacks. Jordan Whitehead's leading the league in interceptions based off one horrible game by Josh Allen. And I just also think Desmond Ridder has never won a road game, which is significant. And their leading receiver against the Lions on Sunday was Kyle Pitts with 41 yards. That was their leading receiver the entire game. It's something with the Falcons that if they can't run the ball effectively, they can't pass to save their lives. And going against Jacksonville, who, let me say this about the Jags, Trevor Lawrence still hasn't beaten the Texans at home. But I read this stat somewhere. Apparently, they have won 17 or 16 of the last 19 meetings. The Texans have beaten the Jags 16 of the last 19 games. So I feel very much this is the Bengals-Browns in the AFC South. That were the Jags over time, for the most part, through, more years than not, have been the better team recently than the Texans. But the Jags just somehow always lose to the Texans, regardless of the coaching staff and talent. So, and they have a bottom 10 defense. They give up the sixth most passing yards. They give up the sixth most passing yards in the league. But it's one of those things where also Calvin Ridley has had a tough time as well. And after having that 101-yard game in his debut with the Jags, in the last two games, he's had 72 yards. And like I said, I think the one thing why I'm going with the Jags, though, is the idea of saying they have more overall offensive talent. I don't know defensively. I think Atlanta, with their defense, can hang around with Ridder. I don't know in that foreign environment in London for those Falcons, where I think some of them maybe have been there before with different teams, but this is a whole different environment for most of these Falcons players going to London. The Jags have been going there every year just for a money grab, and also that's where about 80% of their fans go, or in London, because they've been there so long. And it's just one of those things where I just trust the Jags to use their experience, their time, the conditions, knowing the culture, knowing the setting, knowing the environment, knowing the field, not the field since they're not, knowing the pitch. I feel like the Jags should be able to win this game. If they lose this game, then this is going to be a big problem for the Jags moving forward, because I honestly think with how the Colts have been doing, and if the Texans kind of put it back together, the Jags are going to be in a dogfight for a division that me and a lot of people thought was going to be more of a cakewalk than not. But, the reason why I took Atlanta to +3 is because of how bad that defense is, and I think Desmond Ridder, with those weapons, if he can have enough time and move against the bad secondary, can make some plays. I just think he hasn't won a road game in his career. He hasn't looked that great, and I just trust the Jags, knowing the environment, to feel comfortable and play and execute better, especially to Ridley and other receivers, to win this game in a unique international game for some good reasons and bad. So, but that's why I like Atlanta here +3 and Atlanta straight up. The next game, the Miami Dolphins over the Buffalo Bills. This one, to me, ladies and gentlemen, Miami, I'm going to take Miami. Even though I have Buffalo still winning the division, and I think you can have both those opinions at the same time. You can look at the Dolphins and say, they are going to win this game, but the Bills still can win this division. But the reason why I'm going with them is just because of how dynamic that offense is. Everybody's known that's a football fan what happened on Sunday afternoon at Hard Rock Stadium, where the Miami Dolphins absolutely kicked the tail ends, embarrassed, humiliated, scarred the Denver Broncos 70-20. That was the most points in the game since 1966, and that was the second most yards in NFL history, I think, behind the 1954 Rams. And they're the first team in NFL history to have 5 rushing and 5 passing touchdowns in the same game. And Tua and Tyreek, for a single season, eclipsed their own numbers through 3 weeks. Tua has over about 1,038 yards. That's the most through 3 weeks for any Dolphin signal caller in franchise history. And same thing with Tyreek Hill with his 400-plus receiving yards through 3 weeks. That's the most through 3 games in Dolphins history. They just look absolutely fantastic. I'm really mad that Mike McDaniel did not go for the field goal. He didn't go for the field goal. And because I would have, if I knew that I had the NFL record in my sights and I was trying to be classy, I appreciate the gesture, but I would have gone for it because at that point, going from 70 to 73 and being called classy after 73, you already put up 70. You already made the Denver Broncos look like the Citadel while you had Tua running the Alabama offense against them. That's what it felt like watching. But, and Buffalo, so that's how dominant Miami was. And Buffalo, here's the thing. Buffalo has played fantastic over the last 2 weeks. 6.5 points per game over the last 2 weeks. This is the number one offense in terms of yards and points against the number two defense in terms of points and yards. So this is mono, strength versus strength. Buffalo forced their most turnovers on Washington's Week 10 of the 2021 season. Josh Allen had his first rushing touchdown of the year, and A.J. Espinoza had his first career touchdown off the fumble recovery that made it like 30-0. But the reason why I'm going with Miami in this game is Buffalo has had a propensity to turn it over at least once or twice each game, and the Jets was obviously the most glaring one with 4. If they turn the ball over on this Miami offense, they are dead. The Broncos had 3 turnovers on Sunday, and the floodgates were already open by the end of the half. And knowing Josh Allen, it's likely that they're going to commit a turnover, and that'll be the end of the game. And I think that's why. Do I think the Bills' defense is good, and will they allow 70 points? No. But could they allow 31, 34? Yes. Because I think that's how dynamic and explosive that offense is. And it's just the battle of saying which quarterback is going to turn it over to give the other teams more opportunities. I think that Josh Allen will turn the ball over more than the Dolphins will, which will give the Dolphins more opportunities to score, which will see the demise of Buffalo for this week. Should be a great game, incredibly entertaining game against the 2 best teams in the AFC East. And Tua will make history by getting his first victory in Buffalo against the Bills. I just feel like in this idea, for me, I'm going to take the offense and trust the more efficient and safe offense than the Buffalo Bills, who I think will play well. They will play better defense than they did. They will play better defense than Denver did or the Chargers did. But I just don't think if Allen turns it over at least once or twice, that it's going to be over, because I just think the Dolphins are the modern day greatest show on turf, if not better, with the talent. So that's why I like Miami here, plus 2.5, and Miami straight up. The next game, the Denver Broncos over the Chicago Bears. There was that old adage of the irresistible force versus the immovable object. This game is the very pathetic force versus the constantly moving object. The turning off force versus the constantly moving object is the Denver Broncos versus Chicago Bears. Somebody has to win this game. The Denver defense, on the opposite end, looked absolutely pathetic. They looked liftless, clueless, lifeless, pathetic. Any bad negative word, that's what it was. Cortland Sutton had 2 huge fumbles. Denver is now 0-3 for the 3rd time in the last 5 years. 3 of the last 5 years, they're 0-3. Sean Payton looks lost. Sean Payton looks worse than Nathaniel Hackett, which is something that I would not thought that I could say after what Nathaniel Hackett did. And look, I'm not trying to, Vance Joseph, he doesn't deserve a job. He should have been fired on Monday. But I digress. But, leave that alone, and Payton keeping the entire staff. And Russ, look, it's not, I don't think for this year, the primary amount of the blame should not, and I repeat, not go to Russell Wilson. I think he deserves about 25 to 35% of the blame, because he definitely in the second half has not played well, but nobody could have won that game yesterday. Even, you put any other team out there, put the best offenses you think. Kyle Shanahan and the Niners aren't doing that. Mahomes isn't doing that if your defense gives up 70 points. But the reason why you have to take the Denver Broncos, or I'm taking the Denver Broncos in this game, is because both defenses suck. Okay, so you know that the ball will be moving up and down the field. However, here's the biggest problem. The Denver offense at times this year has actually shown they can score points. The Chicago Bears have shown you they can't really do any of that. They have a minus 59 point differential this year. That's the second worst through 3 games entire history of the Chicago Bears. They're on a 13-game losing streak, longest in franchise history. And Justin Fields, when they had 208 yards of offense, he was responsible throwing and running for 72% of their yards. And I guess in a garbage time moment, though, they were down 34-0 at the half. DJ Moore caught his first touchdown with the Bears. So good for him. Congratulations. But that's the reason why I'm taking the Broncos. The defenses match out. They're both going to suck. But it's something where who will move the ball more effectively against a pathetic defense? Russell Wilson, with the weapons he has, from what I've seen from the Broncos, will move the ball more effectively compared to Justin Fields than what I've seen against the Broncos defense. If he can, that'll be a positive thing for Justin Fields. The best thing for Justin Fields is to get into a shootout. If he gets stifled by this Bronco defense after what they did last week, his career in Chicago is over. Over! If that happens. If he puts up less than 28, I'm serious, I expect Chicago to put up 28. If he puts up less than 28 of how bad that defense has been, then he is, he's getting into the Zach Wilson, he's getting into the black Zach Wilson conversation. That's how bad, if he can't score on this defense. Ironically, though, Zach Wilson's going to Denver next week. That's a different game for next week. So, it should be an interesting game, but it's definitely one to where I think for a lot of these people, if they could go tie through 5 quarters, everybody would take that, because I think that's how disgusted and frustrated fans from those fan bases are to give either team a win. But I'm taking Denver here. At least I know Denver has shown that they can move the football offensively. Chicago has shown me that I don't know if they really can. And that's the difference. So that's like Denver here -3 and Denver straight up. The next game, the Cleveland Browns over the Baltimore Ravens. This is one to where I am taking the Cleveland Browns because of their defense and consistent overall fundamental offensive game. The Cleveland Browns have a plus 41 point differential through the first 3 games of the year. That's their best point differential since 1989. Cleveland has the number 1 total defense in terms of yards and points. They have the best rushing defense. They have one of the, they're number 1 across the board. If you take out the Steeler game, or let's be fair here, let's give everything into consideration. Through 3 games this year, they have averaged 6 points on offense a game. They held the Titans and Bengals to a field goal, and they held the Steelers to 2 offensive touchdowns. 12 points. 12 points. So 18 points through 3 games. That's 6 points a game offensively, which is incredibly impressive. Amari Cooper had a fantastic game. He had 7 receptions for 116 yards on 8 targets. They were able to run the ball effectively. Myles Garrett had a field day against the Tennessee offensive tackle Andre Dillard. He had 3.5 sacks, which was brutal. And when you look at the Ravens, this is one of those things to where when you look at the Ravens, Lamar had his 15th career double-triple where he had 200-plus passing yards and 100-plus rushing yards. He has his 5th career game with 2 rushing touchdowns. He continues to be the best running quarterback in the league. Unfortunately, with his throwing, where I would give Lamar's running an A, his throwing gets about a D+, because he was that bad throwing from the pocket around in the 4th quarter, the big moments on Sunday, and he only threw for a little over 200 yards in a game where we needed him to throw at least 1 or 2 touchdowns and throw for over 200 yards against a bad Colts secondary. And also, one little kind of key thing that's kind of concerning, even though I think with the Ravens fan base, and I'm one of them, can only say, we provide this much heat on a kicker. Justin Tucker this year, for his field goals, he's already missed 2 field goals through 3 games. That's not very Justin Automat-Tuck-ish, and that's very tough. But in this game, with that being said, I'm going to take the Cleveland Browns because I trust with the Browns' health, even though they don't have Conklin and they don't have some other significant injuries, and Greg Newsome could have injured his arm, I believe, in that game as well. I think the Cleveland Browns win this game off their toughness, grittiness through that defensive line, and the Ravens, I just think, can be able to respond in Cleveland in a tough environment against their former team. Should be a great game, but in this game, I'm going to take the home team, the more well-protected quarterback, and the better overall defense, which leans towards the Cleveland Browns. So that's why I like Cleveland here -2 and Cleveland straight up. The next game, the Cincinnati Bengals over the Tennessee Titans. This is one to where the Titans suck too. The Titans are very much like the defensive version of the Browns, except that it's a bad thing. The Titans, through 2 or 3 games, have kicked 6 field goals. And to me, here was the most damaging stat for the Mike Vrabel offense in this current time period. The Titans gained under 100 yards of total offense in the entire game. That's the first time in Mike Vrabel's career he's seen an offense move the ball that little. And that's the lowest amount of offensive yards gained by a Tennessee Titan team since Week 15 of 2006, when the Jeff Fisher-led Titans played the Jack Del Rio-led Jacksonville Jaguars, and the Titans won that game 17-7, even with not being able to move the ball that well. When you look at the Bengals, I think, again, their defense played sensationally. First time since 2019 to have 5+ sacks and 2+ turnovers. I was very impressed with that. And, I'm happy Joe was able to stay upright. I would have probably let him rest for a couple weeks to make sure that calf is fully healthy. But to be fair to him, he said he valued going 0-3, or not falling to 0-3 more than his own health. So at least he'll do everything he can for his team. But if Joe Burrow, can stay healthy and be cleared, I think they absolutely smacked this Titan team with how little inept offense they have seen through a few weeks. Also, the other problem with the Titans is they're not running the ball effectively. Derrick Henry, one of the better running backs in the league, has his lowest amount of rush yards for Henry this year, and it's since the second year he's been in the league. That's just unbelievable. And it's something where, like, the Bengals, they didn't look sharp against the Rams, even though Evan McPherson did make 3 big clutch field goals, including 2 from 50+. I just think the Bengals, they played the Titans before. It was a competitive, tight game. The Titans almost had a chance to win it, but they blew it. I don't think this is going to happen this time with how the Titans and the Bengals are shaping up this time. Give me Joe Burrow and the Bengals easily, just because they have more talent, they have the better quarterback, and if Joe Burrow can still manage the pain and play well, I think this Bengal team is going in the right direction, and they could, by the end, still be in the playoff race, and everything that's going on in the division, definitely for the division race as well. So that's why I like Cincinnati here. -2.5 at Cincinnati straight up. The next game, the Los Angeles Rams over the Indianapolis Colts. This is a game to where I'm going with the better quarterback. When I look at the Rams last night, they gave up 6+ sacks. Matthew Stafford had 2 horrible interceptions that essentially cost them the game, or it would have made that Puka Nacua touchdown look incredibly more important than it did at the end. And it's one of those things to where I'm really impressed with what the Colts have done. The offensive line's still been pretty much intact. Zach Moss had a career high in rushing yards. The former Buffalo Bills bust had a sensational day against the Baltimore Ravens defense. And Gus Bradley is coaching up that defense tremendously well. They have 10 sacks in their last 2 games, and Zaire Franklin against the Baltimore Ravens on Sunday had 15 total tackles. That's incredible. And I also want to shout out Indianapolis Colts kicker Matt Gay, who became the first kicker in NFL history to make 50+ yard field goals in the same game. But I'm going to take the Rams here because I believe the Rams, they're angry about what happened, but I trust that Rams defense going up against a banged offensive line with Aaron Donald in that pass rush to make it uncomfortable with Gardner or Richardson, whoever's back there, that they make mistakes and grind out a tough win that could save the Rams season in perspective. Because if they drop to 1-3, then you're looking at it going, okay, this might be the end for everybody in the Rams organization, whether they like to or not. But the reason why I'm going with the Rams, better quarterback, better coaching, and I just trust that the Rams defense will not allow what the Ravens defense did with Gardner Minshew, throwing beautiful up and down passes in big spots to win the game. I'll shout out to Michael Pittman, though, a guy I've ripped on this show, on this channel before, but he made a huge catch that helped them set up for the game-winning field goal. So that's why I like the Los Angeles Rams here, plus 1.5, and the Los Angeles Rams straight up. The next game, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers over the New Orleans Saints. This is one to where I'm taking Tampa Bay based off of one injury. Derek Carr. Derek Carr has to believe him suffered a sprained AC joint. He is considered week to week, which means that former Buccaneer quarterback Jameis Winston once again gets to play his former team in a starting capacity, and I just don't think I can trust Jameis Winston. Even when Derek Carr was out there, he only threw for 103 yards. But it's just something to where I believe in Baker effectively much more higher amount than I do Jameis and the Saints. Should be an interesting game. Both defenses are pretty solid. Both teams have impressive receivers and then lacking number twos. The run games are about to push, even though Alvin Kamara coming back for the Saints is significant. But I am taking the Tampa Bay Buccaneers here based off the Derek Carr injury because of the better quarterback, and I'm going to stick with that. I'm actually surprised, now with the news that we know, I'm surprised that the Bucs are still considered 3-point underdogs, even with the Derek Carr unlikely to play news. But I will take that, though, just because I trust Baker and that team to go into New Orleans, a hostile environment, which Baker, is used to in some areas, and outplays Jameis Winston in a very interesting and key divisional game. So, that's why I like Tampa Bay here +3 and Tampa Bay straight up. The next game, the Philadelphia Eagles over the Washington Commanders. This one's fairly easy. Philadelphia has just been fantastically dominant for the most part. Their running game is one of the best in the league. DeAndre Swift looks like an absolute steal from the Detroit Lions for that 4th round pick. He's played, they've played well. The defensive line's been fantastic. Jalen Carter and Christian Gonzalez are probably my 2 early NFL DPOY candidates, DROY candidates, based on how well dominant Jalen's been playing against week after week against very bad offensive lines. And Christian Gonzalez, the New England Patriots corner, he has shut down a significant amount of receivers from Tyreek Hill, Garrett Wilson, and AJ and Devontae. Either one. He has done an incredible job with this Eagles team as a whole. I am a little concerned about the Eagles secondary because I feel like there were opportunities in the Bucs game that they could have made a huge play to change the momentum of the game. But with this being Washington committed 4 turnovers on Sunday, all of them pretty much by Sam Howell. It was absolutely dreadful, pathetic, any type of negative word you want to use. Also, interesting fact though, they have played the Bills 8 times. Washington has since Super Bowl 36. Washington has lost 7 of 8 against the Philadelphia Eagles, and I think the Philadelphia Eagles once again just show their might and toughness and talent through the defensive line. I think Sam Howell's going to be in for another rough day, and it's going to be interesting to see what's going to happen moving forward with the Commanders having a huge game against the Bears week 5 in Chicago. So that's why I like Philadelphia here -7, Philadelphia straight up. The next game, the Minnesota Vikings over the Carolina Panthers. This is one to where I'm going with the better quarterback. Both defenses are about the same. Shaq Thompson, J.C. Horn, a lot of key defensive injuries and a lot of key spots for both teams. Not really both running the ball effectively well. I think the Vikings are in a spot to where they seriously need to consider if they lose to the Carolina Panthers, Vandy Dolan is their quarterback, if they need to trade Kirk Cousins to the New York Jets and give him an opportunity to start and maybe turn the Jets into a solid playoff team. I don't know if that's going to happen, but if the Vikings lose this game, they seriously have to consider letting Kirk Cousins go and trading and punting on this year to move forward with a positive and bright the future moving forward. Also, there are some problems with the Vikings defense. Is 6 overall in points and yards. Justin Jefferson's at 458 yards for his career. They also, the Vikings, the Panthers, here's the Achilles heel for the Panthers. It's their run defense. They gave up 146 yards rushing on the ground. Kruger Hill, the linebacker, who's a solid linebacker, did a good job. He had 10 total tackles. And also, just in this rivalry, the Panthers have lost 5 of the last 6 against the Vikings. So that might not be the case this time around. But I'm just going to take the better quarterback, the better offensive talent, and the better overall defensive scheme compared to Carolina, who just feel happy that, they're still hanging around, still fighting tough. So that's why I like Minnesota here. Let's see, Minnesota here. Minnesota here straight up, but Carolina plus 3.5. The next game, the Pittsburgh Steelers over the Houston Texans. I'm taking the Pittsburgh Steelers here based on the fact that Houston, as great a story as it's been for C.J. Stroud, he is the third quarterback to throw for 900-plus yards in his first 3 starts. I believe that's only Deshaun and Cameron. Deshaun and Vic are the only 2 other quarterbacks to throw for 900-plus yards through their first 3 games. And no turnovers, no interceptions from the Houston Texans quarterback. And I am very impressed and concerned for the Jags moving forward about how dominant can this Jags team be if their defense keeps playing that badly. But the reason why I'm going with Pittsburgh is it's the defense of Pickett. I think Kenny Pickett at this point should be better than C.J. Stroud. I don't know if it's exactly the case, if you want to believe that, but I know how dominant that Pittsburgh Steelers defensive line is with Hayward, with Watt, with Highsmith, with Cole Holcomb, with Peterson, with Wallace. That entire Pittsburgh defense was played incredibly well. They're going to roll through the Houston Texans offensive line to get a significant victory, to get them to 3-1 with a sensational defense, but a banged up offense that needs a lot of work in a lot of different areas. But the good news is that for the Steelers getting to 3-1, Mike Tomlin's only going to say this: it's all about winning, man. Simple as that for the Steelers. That's why I like Pittsburgh here -3 and Pittsburgh straight up. The next game, the Los Angeles Chargers over the Las Vegas Raiders. This is one to where the injury to Jimmy Garoppolo getting a concussion changed everything. Because honestly, I thought with the Raiders and Chargers, if Garoppolo and McDaniels are both there, I trust them that there will be a mess up at the end for the Chargers. They always do this. But I think at the end of the day, with what the Chargers showed, is that they are more consistent. Keenan Allen had a sensational day, broke a career high in receptions, second most receiving yards in a game. And when I look at this Raiders-Charger game, it's something to where, like, the offense for the Raiders, all you have to do is double team Devontae Adams and take him out of the game completely, and I believe the Chargers will win, because it seems like for Jimmy Garoppolo and that offense, Josh Jacobs really hasn't been able to get going that much either. He's had 36 career rushing yards, and I just don't believe with the Chargers, even as bad as they could be, I don't think they're going to mess this this Charger-Raider opportunity. So that's why I like Las Vegas here, plus 5.5 for the Los Angeles Chargers straight up. The next game, the Dallas Cowboys over the New England Patriots. 15 straight wins for the New England Patriots over the Dallas Cowboys. That is the longest active streak in the NFL. I believe the second streak is the Denver Broncos losing to the Kansas City Chiefs at about 11 or 12. So, when you look at the Patriots, they have done a good enough job to be respectful and competent, which I think is huge. Because they also held the Jets in that game for the Patriots 38 total yards. And Mac Jones now is a career 500 quarterback, which is really nice to see. But I am taking the Dallas Cowboys because even though, again, they pulled off a massive upset, they have the 5th worst red zone touchdown percentage in the league at 40%. They were at 11 plays within the 10-yard line, couldn't score, and they had 223 rush yards given up by the Cowboys' run defense, a defense that was so dominant, it was compared to it's compared to the all-time greats, and Micah Parsons wants to run his mouth and say, we need to do a little more for you, all start buying in. Well, you're going to have to do a lot more, because I just do not trust the Patriots, or the Cowboys here, to cover this 7-point game. I wouldn't be surprised if the Patriots won due to it being Belichick, but I feel like with the Cowboys having enough talent and enough pride in themselves, hopefully, they wake up from this game and decide to kick the tar out of the Cowboys in decisive fashion to gain some of their confidence back. Should the game be interesting? Sure, because I really like what the Patriots have in their running back room with Ramondre Stevenson and Ezekiel Elliott. I think the Patriots should feel very kind of nervous about this game because I think they have a big game next week. The Cowboys are going to want to prove tremendously what's going to happen. And I think, in this game, I think the Patriots use the time of possession to really kill the clock and keep this game up in 7 to give Mac the opportunity to win. I'm saying he's not going to because I have the Cowboys winning, but I do expect them to cover the 7-point spread this coming Sunday afternoon against Dallas in Dallas at 4:25. So that's why I like New England here. Or that's why I like New England here +7, but Dallas straight up. Then the final 3 games. The San Francisco 49ers over the Arizona Cardinals. Look, shout out to Josh Dobbs and the Cardinals. Shout out to Jonathan Gannon. Shout out to the defensive coordinator, offensive coordinator. You played the Cowboys in a worse opportunity. The Niners just know they're going to be prepared. It's a division rivalry. You haven't beat the Cardinals in a very long time. Brock Purdy had a career high in passing yards at 300 plus. Christian McCaffrey is second in the league, or second in first league in terms of rushing the football. And the Niners look just absolutely fantastic and sensational. Where the Cardinals, on the other hand, are a bit of a different story to where the Cardinals, they have been a very competitive and feisty team for most of this year. They should be 2-1, and you could argue they could be 3-0 if the Commanders did not turn the ball, or if the Cardinals did not turn the ball over right around the Cardinal red zone that could have won them the game. So, at the end of the day, I took Arizona +4.5 2 weeks ago, and everybody laughed at me. Or, or it was like, wow, you really don't believe in the Giants that much. That you think Arizona's going to cover the spread. Fortunately, they did. Julie blew a 27-point lead to get there, but that was huge. Now, it's very much similar to this situation, though I do not feel nearly as confident about the 49ers being seen in a close game for only the second time this year. Because in weeks 1 and 3, they were pretty much routes, and the game was over. I don't think it's going to happen to this Cardinal team, but I do think that the expectation for the Niners will continue to go up with every big significant victory. I just think of Arizona, I think that the best respect you give them is that they cover, but I think at the end of the day, with as little talent as they have, they win the game by at least, or I would say at least 10 points. This was a 10-point spread. I take it 14. That's a little too much. And I think Arizona covers because I think they'll be feisty and compete around the 49ers' ability. But the Niners are just too stacked and too legit with talent at the offensive line, the defensive line, the secondary, the quarterback, the running back. Every good spot has great talent at it. But I'm going to give Arizona their respect based on the fact that Arizona has been able to cover 2 significant spreads. And I do think, even as well as the Niners, I think will play, the Cardinals will definitely be able to hang around longer than the Niners hope they would. So that's why I like San Francisco here straight up at Arizona +14. The next game, the Kansas City Chiefs over the New York Jets. This is a game to where the New York Jets are one of the worst teams, if not the worst team in football. Robert Saleh's a clown. Zach Wilson's a bum. Joe Douglas is Turd Ferguson. The Jets are just a disaster and a horrific laughingstock. When you have Joe Namath, Mr. Jet, ripping the Jets, that's where you know you've hit a problem. If Joe Namath feels comfortable ripping the organization that he is most synonymous with. And look, here's Kansas City. Look, Patrick Mahomes threw for over, youngest quarterback to throw for 25,000 yards. Defense is fantastic. Top 10 defense in terms of points and yards. They were up 34-0 at the end of the half. They're playing Zach Wilson for crying out loud. I gotta come. They're playing Zach freaking Wilson, the white Jamarcus Russell of the NFL, and the Chiefs are coming in with one of the best defenses. Travis Kelce scoring on and off the field. He and his fun with the artist that everybody knows. That Taylor Swift. They're all having fun. Andy Reid passed Tom Landry for 4th most career victories. And I just feel like with this game, it's something where with Robert Saleh, he literally gave this game away. Because it's like, you said yesterday, Zach Wilson, this is an actual quote. Go to SNY, go to any New York media. Robert Saleh said, Zach Wilson is your unquestioned starter. The last time the Jets played a competent team, we thought, that was a good team, they lost by 20. Giving the Chiefs 9.5 of a defense that's better, that's easy money. That's effective. It's easy. It's really not even that much to talk about. Because everybody knows the Chiefs, besides maybe defensive backs, except the offensive line, and running backs potential, or running back on paper should be, they're better than the Jets. In every imaginable way. It's just embarrassing that Robert Saleh, this conehead, this brown conehead, Robert Saleh, literally stood in front of the media and said Zach Wilson was their unquestioned starter. That guy needs to get canned in New York Jersey style because he is that much of a delusional idiot. I'm not saying that Aaron Rodgers would have won the game, but it's saying that everybody that's picking this game after yesterday are pretty much going to put it all on the points, easily end the story. That's the only thing you have to say about why this Chiefs-Jets game, I know I talked about all the different reasons with certain stats about other games. This one was fairly easy, and I gave the Chiefs their credit. That's it. When Robert Saleh said, Zach Wilson is our unquestioned starter, we're not getting the backup. I'm not saying that any backup could have beat them, but it gave you some hope that maybe it can be competitive, especially with that defense effective as it was, even though they have had 1 sack and no turnovers through the last 2 weeks. The Chiefs are going to win based on just that Zach Wilson started. And Robert Saleh, the brown conehead, is an idiot that cannot be effective in this spot. This game is easy to pick because of Robert Saleh saying Zach Wilson's our unquestioned starter. It still would have been easy to pick, but if they would have got a Nick Foles, if they would have got a Tyrod Taylor, if they would have got a Jacoby Brissett, if they would have got anybody on the roster, that guy would take Mohamed Sanu. Bring the former Rutgers guy. You're in Jersey. Bring Mohamed Sanu, the former quarterback of Rutgers. He would be a better quarterback than Zach Wilson would be. And, sorry for going on a tangent, but Kansas City over New York, just fairly, Zach Wilson starting, they're going to get shredded. Simple enough. That's what Kansas City here, minus 9.5. Kansas City straight up. And lastly, the Seattle Seahawks over the New York Giants. My last outright upset of the week. I'm taking Seattle over the Giants based on the fact that the Seattle Seahawks have really played effective offensive football. Kenneth Walker and I think Charbonnet gained about over 150-plus scrimmage yards together. Gino threw a nice touchdown to Jake Bobo, who made the team. Kudos to him. And the Giants, as effective as they have been, for 3 games, with the Titans, in 2 of their 3 games, they've scored 1 touchdown in 2 games. They've scored 1 touchdown in 10 of 12 quarters of football. In 83% of the season, they have managed offensively to put up 1 touchdown. They've given up 93 points defensively to the Cowboys and the Niners. And I'm not saying, and Seattle, they have enough offensive firepower with DK, with Lockett, with Njigba, with Fant, with that running style. The offensive line I'm a bit concerned about. And I do think getting Saquon Barkley back could help them. But I just can't see, with how well Geno's been playing, of how inept the Giants' defense has been, how the Seahawks are 1.5-point dogs. I get home field, but I have much more faith in Seattle than I do the Giants right now. And I think that's how they win this game. I think Seattle is going to, effectively run the ball. I think Geno's going to be able to make some timely throws. I think he's going to use that lesson better. But I feel like the Seattle Seahawks also have a better offensive line. It's a little bit of a healthier offensive line. And I just trust, if you're going to tell me Pete Carroll with the staff he has, or Daniel Jones and Dayball, even though I like Dayball a lot, I think Geno and Carroll with that roster should be able to go into MetLife, Geno's former home for both the Jets and the Giants. I mean, it's kind of a unique thing. Yeah, what kind of a unique opportunity for Geno to go back to MetLife Stadium where he's played as both New York teams. I can't think of the last quarterback that's played actually for the Giants and Jets at the same time. Somebody could let me know. Please let me know. Because I think that's kind of a cool stat, because I can't think of any other quarterback that's played for the Giants and Jets both in their careers. But I think Seattle wins this game easily due to their effective running game, the receivers being able to be effective, Saquon's limited ability, and a very porous offensive line by the New York Giants. I think Seattle will get a good amount of pressure. And just like I said last week about the East Coast thing, Pete Carroll once again 15-6 over the last 5 years on the East Coast. Monday Night Football. Pete Carroll has been one of the better primetime coaches in his Seattle tenure with or without Russ. And I think the Seahawks pull this off in a very interesting, desperate game for the Giants, where if they lose the game, their season's over. But for Seattle, it just builds momentum and consistency to where they're going to be at least a playoff team and arguably the division winner of the NFC West. So that's why I like Seattle here, plus 1.5, and Seattle straight up. But that is it. So those are my picks for this week. Like, comment, rate, and subscribe. Please check out the NFL YouTube Prognosticators page to go see other prognosticators such as Half Moon's Picks, Johnny Talks Sports, Fire and Brim Sports, Sports Fan Entertainment, Andrew Warren, the Robert Lee Sports Show. All those guys and gals make predictions like I do. And until next Monday, good luck to all players, coaches, teams, fantasy players, and fellow prognosticators. And until next week, this is Matthew Fanatic signing off. Until next time, everyone, so long.